Hey, thanks for stopping by. Robert Kofed with Computer Creations. I want to show you how to build this hat box today. I saw this on a post and I thought it was a great idea. I like baseball caps. As you well know, I wear one just about every day. And so I have lots of baseball caps. I collect them. I love them. I don't wear them very long and I need a place to store them. Well, this little box stores about 4 to 5 baseball caps. And the neat thing about it is you can put some mounting holes in the back of this box, hang it on a wall, and you can store 20 or 30 baseball caps in a fairly short amount of space or small amount of space. We're going to take this and take it from scratch. So I'm going to show you how to design it, how to cut it out, how to assemble it. It's going to be a complete project tutorial, so it'll be a little bit longer. We're going to use some basic light burn skills, but we're also going to use some advanced light burn skills like node editing and understanding the maximum and minimum power settings when you're scoring. Now, this box was only a prototype and it's got some problems, primarily that the scoring settings aren't even close to what they need to be to make it look good. And I'm going to show you kind of where I started and where we need to go in far as adjusting minimum and maximum power settings when you're scoring something. Once you learn that and understand how that all falls into place, there's lots of places you can use scoring to help you put things together. Scoring is much faster than a fill, those kind of things. So we're going to jump into Lightburn. I'm going to show you how to make this box from scratch, and before you know it, you're going to have another product that you can offer. The other thing that I will tell you is I'm using a new lav mic today. Let me know how it sounds. I went away from the Rode that I've had only because it worked great and functioned properly, but it was always big. And I don't, I typically don't like to run a bunch of lav mic wires, that kind of stuff. I try to produce these in a short amount of time if I can. And I think this lav mic is going to be the ticket. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video. So let's jump into Lightburn and get this project started. Okay, let's start with the components of this hat box. I'm going to show you what I've got here, and then I'm going to show you how to draw most of this, primarily the face, because that's the tricky part. The other parts of this box are just rectangles, and I'll show you what we're doing here. So let's start with the face of the hat box. Red color is going to be a cut line for me, green is going to be score, and blue is going to be engrave. And the width and height of the hat box from the front is going to be 8 inches wide by just over 5¼ inches tall. It's going to be 3½ inches wide. So basically it's 8 and some change. 8 inches by 3½ inches is how wide and deep it is. And it's 5¼ inches tall. So it's not a very big hat box, but it does hold 5 hats. The good thing about this project as well is you could do this for just about any, or cut it out on just about any laser. So if you've got a small laser that's got a 12 by 20 cutting area, you can still make this project. So let's go over the sizes of each one of these components. So these support blocks, they're actually going to fit on top of each one of these sides. And this green score line just gives me a guide. So when I want to glue each one of these support blocks onto this block, I can just take it and use the score guide as an alignment guide to do that. So I would take this support block and glue it on this other piece, and that creates the edges for me to go ahead and put this box together. There's lots of ways to do this. You could do finger joint. I just wanted to show something different today. So your support blocks size-wise are going to be right at 3 inches by 5.27 inches. So you'll need 2 of those. And those are going to be support blocks, and they're going to go right over where the green score mark is. Then each side piece is going to be truly 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches. You'll need 2 of those. And then what I did is I generated a score line on 3 sides, just the width of whatever material. So the thickness on my material is like 0.21. And so you'll have to determine that and generate an offset for that based on the material. So this box that I did was made out of 1/4 inch material, which is anywhere from 0.19 to 0.22, depending on which material you use. So you got your support blocks, you got your sides, you got your scores, so you can place these support blocks on each side. Your bottom is going to be 8 by 3.5. Your back is going to be 8 by 5.27. And then your front, which we've all talked about. So you can see pretty simple components. The bottom, the back, the sides, and the support blocks are really just simple rectangles. Shouldn't be any problem. You can round these off to numbers. Like if you wanted to round this off to just truly 8 inches, you can. And so what I wanted to do is show you how to make this the front piece, because that's really the only tricky part of this design if you're not used to doing designs in Lightroom. So let's go ahead and jump into that next. Then we'll cut it out. Then I'll show you how to put it together. I'll show you how to dial in these score lines. And before you know it, you're going to have yourself a hat box. To start the front, we're going to go ahead and generate a rectangle. It is 8 inches wide by 5.27 inches tall. And you're going to see that with a little bit of node editing, it goes pretty fast. So the first thing that we're going to do is we've got to generate a segment right up here, and I'll post a picture on kind of the area that we're working on. But what we've got to do is we've got to generate a measurement 3/4 of an inch over from this corner this way before this line starts to dip down and come back up here and generate the scallop or the cutout for the face of the hat. So what I like to do is I like to keep it simple. I'm going to come back into my rectangle tool. I'm going to generate a tool layer, and excuse me, let's turn that red because that's going to be cut. I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to go ahead. This section from here to where it starts to bend down this way is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to just come in here, and the width is going to be 0.75, 3/4 of an inch. I really don't care how tall it is. I'm going to turn this into a tool layer. So I'm going to turn that blue, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to grab this and I'm going to snap it right into that corner. Now I want the exact same box over here, and what we're doing is we're generating a place where I can insert a node right here so I can bend this middle part down this way. So I need another one of these guide boxes. So I'm going to just hit the Control and the D key to duplicate this box, and I'm going to drag it out. That was Control and the letter D. I'm going to come up here to the corner. I'm going to snap it in, and now I've got my references on how far out I need to come before I start to generate this scallop. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert some nodes into this rectangle. So the first thing I'm going to do before you can do any node editing at all is you have to convert this to a path. Right now, this rectangle is a shape, and if I came over here to my node editing tool, you'll notice that there's no nodes show up in any way, shape, or form. So I've got to come up here to Edit and Convert to Path. And now you can see that I've got a node in each one of these corners. Learn node editing. It's very powerful for doing stuff like this. So now I have the ability to break up this line and put in some nodes so I can modify this line in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with my node editing icon on, I'm going to hover over this intersection right here, and I'm going to push the I key for insert. So I just inserted a node right there. You can see it. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hover over until I get my bullseye. I'm going to type I for insert. Remember, I had that outside rectangle selected. It was converted to a path, so I could go ahead and generate nodes. So now we've got that place. So now I have the ability to go ahead and break this middle line up. You're going to see how we're going to do this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to just follow along the center. And when it turns into a bullseye right there, I'm going to generate another node. I'm going to type I. Okay. And then I'm going to take this node. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to hit the letter S for smooth. Nothing's happened yet. Let's try it again. There we go. And now that's a smooth node. Next, we've got to know how far down to bring this. And so we've got to create another rectangle, and I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, to generate a guide to generate this scallop, we're going to need to make a rectangle. So what I've done is I've generated a rectangle that is 5 inches, we'll just say 5 inches wide by 2.6 inches tall. I want to make that exact because you need to fit the brim of that hat. You can adjust it once you get one cut out. Okay, so I've got one 5 inches wide by 2.6 inches tall. And I'm going to go ahead and lock that. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure that this box is in the center of this box. So with your guide box selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select this box. Then I'm going to come up here to the vertically aligned tool and make sure that that's aligned. The next thing I'm going to do is select this and I'm going to just drive it down because I want to make sure that it stays centered. I'm going to hold the Shift key, the Control key, and the down arrow. And now I get some very smooth, minute moves. Make sure that I'm lined up. So now I've got my guide set. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my cutout line. I'm going to go into my node editing. So my node shows up. Excuse me. I'm going to select my node and I'm just going to arrow down until I'm going to zoom in so I can see what's going on. I'm going to hold the Shift key and the Control key for more smoother operation. Right there. Now we're going to want to open this scallop a little bit. So I'm going to just bring this even here and this even here. And that's why I wanted to make sure this, this guide was centered in the middle. And that way this scallop is universal. And at that point, we've got our design for the cutout portion of this face on this hat box. Now, if you want to, we're done with these for a while as far as these guides. I can come over here and I can go ahead and turn them off so I don't see them. Get out of node editing mode. And just like that, we've got ourselves a nice scallop that will cradle that hat nicely. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to generate some score lines and put in a little bit of text. Next, we're going to do the offsets for the scoring, and this is purely optional. This is just to dress up the front of the box a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, you want to make sure that this is all one contiguous line for your offset to work. So when you select it somewhere, just make sure that you have marching ants all the way around the box. If not, select it all, come up here to edit, and to edit and auto join selected shapes, and that will make it a continuous line. So we're going to select that. We're going to come over here to our offset tool. We're going to want to go inward, and we're going to adjust this based on your preference. Usually I'd like to start the first one about the same distance as your thickness of your material. So we'll go ahead and select that, say OK. Oops. Z, undo that. So let's go here again. We do not want to delete the original. And we're going to say OK. and then we're going to turn that green because green is my score layer. Then I want to offset that one more time, and we can make it whatever size you think it needs to be. We're going to say okay. And at this point, we've got our two score lines. Again, this is purely decorative. The reason why I want to score these lines instead of engraving in between them is there's a huge difference in time. So let's talk a little bit about that. If I would come over here and change this to fill, and so I would fill in between these two lines to do a much bolder design. Look at the time difference. I'm gonna preview this, and right now, just this face with this engraving fill line, it's going to take me 15 minutes. And that's at 400 millimeters per second. Compared to if I change it to a line and just do lines or scoring, you can see that I went from 15 minutes down to less than a minute. So if you were making a bunch of these, doing a fill for this frame would really hurt from a time perspective. That's why it's important for you to learn and understand how to do scoring. And so let's talk a little bit about scoring and kind of the ins and outs of it. Scoring is one of the only times that your minimum and your maximum power are always going to be different. They're never going to be the same. Typically, when you're engraving, these max power and min powers are always equal. When you score a line on a piece of wood, they have to be vastly different. And here's why. When your laser is, going fast on these straightaways, it typically is using your max power setting. When it comes into this corner and has to slow down and turn a 90-degree angle, it uses the minimum power. And so what you have to do, and typically if I was going to build this box, I would just do this scoring on a practice piece of wood and get my adjustments down on the scoring. And I'm going to show you how to do that once we get to the laser. But when you're scoring, just remember, these always have to be different. If they're the same, what's going to happen is you're going to get scorched corners, because as this laser slows down to make this corner, the intensity gets greater and greater and greater, and you're going to burn right here in these corners. On the flip side of that, if you go to score something and these lines are way too light to where you can barely see them, your maximum power needs to be adjusted, more than likely up. So it's a dance between what your max power should be and your minimum power should be. And the goal is to have the line as a color pretty much the same going in and coming out of your corners as the straightaways. Next, I put in my text. And what I did to make sure that my text is going to be centered between my score lines vertically and horizontally, I just generated another rectangle, turn it into a tool layer, and now I can go ahead and select my text, hold the Shift key down, select my tool layer, and use the bullseye tool. And now I know that that text is centered in this open space. And that's the quickest, easiest way to not have to guess at it. Just generate your rectangles, use your alignment guides, and with that, you're in good shape. Now at this point, we can go ahead and turn off all of our alignment guides, and our design is pretty much done for the face. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the laser. We're going to play with the scoring here to get our score settings right, because on my test box, it's not right. It's too dark in the corners, too light in the middle. So I know I've got some adjustments to make here. And so let's go to the laser. I'll show you how I tweak the score settings so they look uniform in color. And then we can go ahead and get this box cut out and put together. Okay, let's talk a little bit about scoring before we move on. So you can see that I've got some scorching in the corners, and the straightaways are pretty faint. So what that means is I need to increase my maximum power and decrease my minimum power. And so I'm going to do that. We'll go ahead and run another, just a test run on this piece of scrap wood to see what we need to do to adjust our scoring before we actually cut this pattern out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reduce my corners down to about 5 and my max power up to maybe 26 or 27, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, I've adjusted my speed down to 300 millimeters per second, and I am at 26 on the max and 5 on the min, and we'll see what happens. All right, let me cut all the noise off of. And you can see that it really cleaned this up. Forgive me for the noise here. Okay, so you can see the corners are not scorched any longer. The straightaways are much more evident. And this looks to be actually just a good guess on my part. And so I think we can go ahead and cut this box out, and we can go from there. Yeah, the bottom line is you want to see uniform color in the corners and in the straightaways, and I think we've got that. So 300 millimeters per second, 26 on the max, 5 on the min, and it evened everything out. So all you want to do is just play with your min and your max until you get a uniform color, and you can go forward with your design. The first thing I'm going to do is wiggle all these parts to make sure that they're all cut out. Now, the scoring is a little bit scorched here in the corners because I changed the piece of wood compared to my test piece. So just remember that. I think these little bitty scorches will sand out fine. I've forgotten I had my air assist on my engrave. That's why it's all blown up like that. Remember, when you're engraving, your air assist should always be off. Very little air. Otherwise, you just vaporize that material and push it all over your work, which is what's happened here. I'm going to sand this up and see how she looks, and we'll get to putting it together. All right, she cleaned up pretty good. Some minor blemishes in the corners, but I think it's going to work fine. You could always adjust your settings just a little bit and tweak. And then I just sanded everything front and back. And here's the reason why learning how to score is kind of handy. So what I want to do is I want to take these blocks and glue them on top of these blocks. And those score lines are going to make sure that I get that when I glue this block on top of the bottom block, that it's going to fit exactly where it needs to be. So when I go ahead and put my face on, it will be exactly where it needs to be. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm just going to go ahead and take these blocks, glue them where the score lines indicate they need to be glued, and then we'll go forward building the rest of this box. Okay, so I've put a piece of wax paper underneath so I don't glue my hat box to the table. I'm using some Easy Bond instant glue. I really like this stuff. It's fairly inexpensive and it works really well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the reason why I like this method with this internal block here is it makes it really easy to assemble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue in here, a little bit of glue along here, and then I'm going to just tilt this up. I'm going to make sure that the front and the back are even, and then I'm just going to put this heavy square up there just long enough for it to bond. Then when that one's done, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put glue over here and tilt this one up. Again, making sure that the fronts and the backs are lined up. And let those two dry. Once those are dry, then what I'll do is I'll come in here, put glue along these block edges, and then just go ahead and tip the face in and get that glued in. So it's kind of nice just to do a quick mock-up just to make sure that everything is going to fit the way it is. You can see that that's going to work out real well. And then I would just go ahead and tilt in the back. See if I can do this without knocking everything down. This back comes in. And before you know it, you've got yourself a hat box. So that's what my glue process looks like. I'll go ahead and do the sides first, then do the front and the back. Okay, these two sides are glued up. Flipped it over to make sure that the fronts and backs are nice and aligned and everything's looking good. And so now we're just going to go ahead and drop in the front. I'm going to go ahead and put a glue line all the way around this. And this should just drop right in there like that. And then I'll probably take a couple of clamps and just hold these sides. Won't take a lot of clamping power to get this done. And then do the same thing on the back, and we'll have ourselves a nice hat box. Okay, we've got the face gluing up. We're just going to go ahead and finish this box up. I'm going to just run a bead of CA glue along this edge, kind of in that corner in the pocket. As you can see, making those little blocks on the insides really makes it easy for glue up. And then I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I got the right side. I'm going to go ahead and put just a small bead of glue on the bottom. And this is going to fit snug because I've got those clamps in. And just like that, we've got ourselves a beautiful little box. I can probably take these clamps off. It's been a few minutes. The thing about using this CA glue, if you know what you're doing, it can be quick. And before you know it, we've got ourselves a nice hat box. So that's how you take a project like this. This was really the only harder part of this whole project. The rest of it was all rectangles, modifications. It wasn't really that complicated of a project, but this gives you a great idea on just basic node editing and how you can create something like this just with a few simple skills, and you can make something nice. I hope this information was helpful. Well, I hope you enjoyed that process. As you can tell, if you just take that project and break it up into small bites, before you know it, you're going to be able to create your own hat box, and it won't be hard at all. I told you I'd tell you a little bit about the new lav mic that I'm using, and so here's the information. First of all, this is not a sponsored video in any way. I bought this setup with my own money, and it is made by Hollyland, and it's called the Lark M2. It's a very small, got a very small footprint. It's a magnet back, so you can pretty much put it anywhere on your clothing. It's very light, so it doesn't pull your clothing down at all. And the sound quality seems to be great. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. It's also got a charging station, so you can put your receiver and your mics. It comes with 2 mics, which is kind of nice. You can drop them in here and away you go. It's charging. It's got a battery indicator LED right here. And it also comes, depending on which kit you buy, it will come with a receiver for the USB-C type connection or an iPhone. And that way, if you're using, like a lot of times I'll use my iPhone and my iPad and my bigger camera, all to generate content. And this way I have a consistent sound throughout, so I don't have to adjust the sound quality as much. And so just wanted to bring you that. I know there's a lot of content creators that watch the videos. I will put a link to the kit that I purchased in the description if you're interested. That way you can click on it and go check it out. But I've been using it for about 2 to 3 weeks, and it seems to be rock solid. I haven't had one issue with it. It connects quickly, and the sound seems to be pretty good. So check it out if you want something really light, fast, and easy to use. Until next time, I sure appreciate your support. If you give me a thumbs up, that really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We're over 30,000 subscribers now, and I want to keep growing. If you have suggestions for content going forward, I would love to hear it. I read every single comment that goes in these videos. I really appreciate the input. So until next time, thanks and have a great day.